Hello. Good evening. We're gonna do some more, we're gonna start the final volume of Dot Hack Another Birth. Final volume, and then we move on to a Magic the Gathering novel by the name of Alara Unbroken. Best part about it is it's a one-off self-contained novel that you don't have to know the previous story to understand. It's great. It does feature characters from previous storylines and future storylines, but you don't have to know any of that. It's just a thing that happened to them, and I am enjoying some chocolate cherry tea with soy milk and honey in it, and it's fucking delicious. Okay. Let me just pull up. I hear you stupid sound chip. There we go. All right. Now. Okay. Hold on. Maybe I need to. Excuse me. Lower that sensitivity slightly. I believe that should do it. Yeah. All right. We got it. Okay. So. When last we left off, Black Rose had just defeated... I did actually double check and see what its name was. They had just defeated Gore, the Machinator, one of the 8 phases of the wave that was prophesied in the... something of Twilight. The Epitaph of Twilight. And that's what our group of dot hackers, as they are never called in the games, have been up to. But, Akira's had some issues recently with some stuff. And, I'm gonna pause the jammin' metal to play some ambient, PS1 music to better suit the reading mood. Perfect. And then we're gonna pop over here, and then we are gonna go up. Yeah, perfect. God damn it, it's starting again. Boy. There we go. Anyway. Okay. Huh. Okay. Hoop-a-dap-dee. Okay. This chapter's called The Entrustment of Hope. And as a reminder, this book is a first-person narrative from Akira's point of view, aka Black Rose. Not able to work up the motivation to don the FMD, or face-mounted display, I sat in front of my computer, gazing at my Black Rose character, who stood motionless in town. During my months of experience in the world, I never let my imagination get carried away, speculating on things to come. But perhaps that was only because I never had any concrete information to go on. Now, however, since I had discovered that Mia was having dreams where her name was Matcha, my imagination was running wild. Mia is a cat character that seems like a regular player, just with a weird model, but no one really knows who she is, no one knows where she came from, and she's best friends with a boy named Elk. And there is Mia right there. There we go, that's better. She's very pretty, I like her. And she's best friends with...
3.
Did you see fucking Aiden's video about how to pronounce that? It's hehe. And then if you do the evil faces, it's hehe. Mischievous. But that, or rather, if it'll load, this is Elk. Mia's constant companion. He is a loner by himself. He doesn't talk much. He's a bit of a sad sack when he's by himself. Wimpy little boy. He does appear in .hack GU under a different name, under a different player character. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Yeah, you pronounce as That's so good. Oh my god. Alright. We return to Akira. What the heck is that supposed to mean? I suppose you could say that Operation Breakwater, the first mission the uneasy alliance of Kite, Leos, Helba, Balmung, Wiseman, and I had undertaken, was a success. That's the team that they put together to kill these waves. Before then, our emotions had been purely reactionary, responding after damage was already done. With Helba and Wiseman's cooperation, this time we had been able to analyze data from the world and home in on the quote-unquote sign of the wave. One of the 8 phases, that's it, phases of the wave, before any damage occurred. Because the first couple of... Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Mike. I'm gonna sip some of my tea. Anyway, the damage she's referring to is the first couple of phases that they killed. The result had like real world effects. Like there was a power outage, there was like an earthquake or so. I don't think it was an earthquake, but there was a severe power outage, and a whole bunch, and like a fire broke out somewhere. It was crazy. But once Helba, the hacker, and I forgot his fucking name. Leos, who is a CC Corp employee, and CC Corp are the people who run the world as an MMO. With their help, they were able to like contain the data before it could like leak into the real world after they killed one of the phases, and things were good. We'd also been able to keep any negative backlash from happening after we defeated it. There we go. The operation surely had worked, precisely because we had all agreed to work together. However, I just couldn't feel very happy about it. The cloud of gloom I had felt hadn't dissipated at all. Where are we? There were still 3 phases left: Matcha, Tarvos, and Korbenik. So far, the phases all had arrived in order, so that meant Matcha was next. What if Matcha and Mia are one and the same? I had seen plenty of evidence that Mia was different from everyone else. There were things she could do that were impossible for any normal player character. If Mia is really one of the 8 phases... Ellipses. Ugh! With that thought in mind, I could no longer just sit here staring, so I decided to put on the FMD and search areas where Mia had been known to hang out. I never exchanged member addresses with her, so I couldn't just contact her directly via flash mail, aka email. Or instant messenger, or DMs. It's DMs. But I muttered to myself as I arrived at Fort Oaf's Chaos Gate. Then I cocked my head. Where is Mia all this time? Where is Mia all the time? A new... Oh yeah, Fort Oaf. I'm gonna go there. Do it. That was my mom opening my door to give me some cookies. Had those small Halloween cookies. Fucking delicious. Okay, let's see. Fort Oaf. It's this one. So right now, she's in Fort Oaf. Boop. Boop. Where is Mia all the time? I know that she went aromatic grass collecting with Elk, but I'd never heard of her going out to collect it on her own. I'd also never seen her just wandering around town. I had a hard time picturing her adventuring in a field by herself. Just searching randomly for her would be pointless, though. The number of fields available by choosing keywords was near infinite, and checking them all was an impossible task. Although towns were most likely, She seemed like a dead end. Nope, that seemed like a dead end as well. I wanted to talk to Mia before we fought Matcha, but I had no idea where to look for her. Realizing I was worrying over a situation I could do nothing about, I logged out of the game to try the one other thing I could think of, emailing Kite and Elk to ask them about Mia. Quote the message: I want to talk with Mia. Do you know where she is? Oh, she's no longer at Fort Oaf, so we're back to the real world. I hit send, but I didn't give a detailed reason, so I figured they probably would just ask me why, instead of telling me where she was. If they had any idea. Elk was one thing, but Kite never had mentioned forming a party with Mia. It was natural for him to respond with curiosity. I breathed out deeply, removed my goggles, and checked the time on the cell phone that sat charging next to my computer. The flip phone, too. Mistral is pregnant. I doubt she'll be up this late at night. Yes, Mistral was one of their party members that sort of found herself. She just sort of invited herself along into these dangerous missions. She's like, oh, this is serious, but I want to help. But also, in real life, I'm a pregnant housewife, so I have to, like, step back for the sake of my child. Oh. Where? I thought and started composing an email, but very soon after I sent it, my phone rang. I'm sorry, did I wake you up? I said, answering it. Nope, I was awake, came Mistral's reply. It's been a long time since I've chatted on the phone this late, though. If it's a problem, no worries. I'm usually awake at this time, so what's up? Mistral's usually chipper voice flooded me with relief, and I wondered where I should start. Should I tell her about Mia, or start from the beginning and talk about our fight with Gore? As I sat there perplexed, she spoke up. You said in your email that there was a lot to talk about. It's not like we're logged in and time is of the essence, right? So just take your time and tell me everything. Yeah. Did something happen today? I sighed. This might take a while. That's fine, I don't mind. So, what happened? You see, as I said, and I said, and I told her all about the dream Mia had, about the rule Harold had included in the world, and about what was troubling my mind, how we might have to fight Mia in the form of Matcha, and how I wanted to talk to her before that. As I talked, Mistral kept almost completely silent, as she had when she'd listened to me back in Carmina Gadelica, one of the root towns, chiming in only from time to time to indicate she was paying attention. When I had told her everything that was on my mind, she murmured, You can't say for sure it's a coincidence. Mia's dream? I asked. Right. It doesn't seem strange. It doesn't seem strange to me if an irregular PC like that turned out to be an enemy. But it looks like she's gotten along well with Kite and Elk up till now, I protested. That's it, Mistral cried. Huh? Why has she gotten all weird? Why? I hadn't really thought about it, so I stumbled for an answer. Maybe she knows she's next, so she's confused. Does Mia know that she's Matcha, one of the 8 phases? But if she did know, I don't think she would have talked about the dream. That's true, Mistral considered. But? I think maybe she's just beginning to understand. Her true identity? Probably, Mistral said. That could be why she doesn't that could be why she doesn't show up around people very often. I get it now, I said. Mistral laughed. Well, it's a hypothesis. What if... I paused. If I managed to talk to Mia, I said, I wonder if I might get some clue about how to save the coma victims. Hard to say, Mistral replied. If she really is a phase, then I'll bet she doesn't know about that. I mean, there's something else manipulating events behind the scenes? Probably. I mean, aren't the 8 phases called signs of the wave? They're signs. Signs. Mistral stressed that point, and I wasn't sure how to respond. But I wouldn't be afraid of her, Mistral said cheerfully. You've got Kite's bracelet. I nodded slowly. That's true. Like she said, there was no reason to feel anxious. As long as we had Kite's bracelet, I expected things would turn out alright. Oh, by the way. this is IRL Preggy Mistral. She's adorable. Love her. Love to see her. She's absolutely precious. I don't know why they drew her fingers like that, but it's a sketch. Still, adorable. Let's see. Back to... Oh yeah, and this is what she looked like in-game. Bam! With that snaggletooth. Precious little baby. Okay. Mistral has like airhead energy, but she's way smarter than she seems. Oh, Mistral said suddenly. The baby just kicked. It's sure been moving around a lot lately. That brought me back to reality. Really? Yep, the next time we see each other, I'll have to let you feel it. It's really something else. Guess there's no denying you're a mother now, Mistral. I said, you're a mother now, Mistral, I said. That's the first time in a long while anyone's called me Mistral. She, Mrs. Kurokawa, said. That's it, Mrs. Kurokawa. Laughing. It was a very nostalgic sound. In your real life, no one calls you that, I said dolefully. She paused. Actually, I wish I could help out. Do you have enough Wave Masters? Oh. She wants to help so bad. Oh, we're alright. We finished up with some more small talk, and then I hung up and plugged the cell phone back into its charger. Collapsing into bed, I stared up toward the ceiling as I pondered. Catching sight of my wall calendar out of the corner of my eye, I took a long, hard look at it. It had been 3 short months since I had registered for the world. I had hoped the situation would be worked out quickly, but it was too complicated for me to resolve on my own. However, with the help of my companions, we had managed to make real progress. Will it be just a little longer? She thought to herself. Even after we defeated the last 3 phases, there might be, Mistral said. Wait. Even after we defeated the last 3 phases, there might be, as Mistral said, something else working behind the scenes. Was it Kubia? Or was it perhaps some other enemy we had yet to encounter? Time passes. The next day, due to final exam preparations and to the fierce competition for winter tennis season starter spots, I came home exhausted. Dinner was a lot of pre-prepared food from the supermarket, and our family conversation was more or less as it had been of late. So as not to drag things down even more, I was nothing but forced smiles as I talked about the day I'd had at school. But even my father, who used to be so supportive, made only a few grunts to show he was listening. I think that Fumikazu's absence would pull this family so far apart. Oh, to think that Fumikazu's absence would pull this family so far apart. I couldn't take much more of the oppressive air, so I gathered up the dishes, as had become my routine, deposited my little brother Kota in the bath, and escaped back to my room. I started at my computer and opened the email I had forgotten to check the night before. There was a version upgrade notice from CC Corp, as well as a message from Leos. It seemed that the Omega server, 1 rank higher than Sigma server, had been opened up. He wanted to hold a discussion there. The message had been sent recently, so it seemed an easy task to get there without being late. Everyone's been gone together, huh? I said out loud, and then started writing an email to Kite. Quote the email. Seems we're meeting in Omega server. Maybe it's about another operation? I'm going on ahead. I watched the message finish sending, then I logged in. Choosing other servers from the Fort Oaf Chaos Gate, I saw the Omega server had been added to the list. Time to go. I remembered to myself, and my Black Rose character began to transfer. In the pitch darkness between worlds, there was a familiar noise, and I cocked my head. Something about this seems suspicious. However, it wasn't possible to interrupt a transfer once initiated, so all I could do was watch the display closely. The moment I appeared before the Chaos Gate in the Omega server root town, Leah Fail, a fierce noise split the air, and the view on my display started shaking like there was an earthquake. With the FMD on, this made me feel like I was going to be sick, so I practically flung it off. And the root town that she was in for like 2 seconds was this. Beautiful looking. Switching to the main monitor, I looked around to see if anyone else was there. Spying Balmung and Wiseman, I tried to ask them what was going on, but that's when Kite warped in next to me. "Kite!" I cried as I tried to approach him, but the controller wasn't responding. Then I saw Helba warp in. "This place is too dangerous," she called. "We're bouncing." "Helba?" Kite shouted. "Bouncing?" But if he said anything after that, his voice was covered by the noise. We all warped out, following Helba's lead. "Welcome to paradise," Helba said, and the intense noise and shaking ceased. I once again donned the FMD. What I saw looking around me seemed to be the net slum I'd visited so many times. "Net slum?" Kite murmured, more calmly than his previous shouts. "It's a mirror of the Omega server," Helba said, smiling. "My own, that is." So, they're now in the net slum Omega server. A mirror server. So Helba's a good enough hacker to make something like this. If she could make a statement like that so calmly, who the heck was she? Leos was there too, and he looked around indignantly. "When did you... something like..." he sputtered. "I can't let my guard down at all with you." "Ah, but thanks to this mirror server, we can be safe," Helba chided him. Safe, I thought. So it was the series... Wait, what? Oh, so it was that serious of a situation? "Yeah," I cried. "How are we supposed to do anything somewhere that unstable? Doing battle in a place where... Wait, what? Doing battle in a place where just being there made the graphics warp was out of the question." "I apologize," Leo said in a monotone devoid of any hint of introspection. "Is that supposed to mean you're sorry?" I shouted. "I said I apologize." "What is with this guy?" I seethed, glaring at Leos. This is an administrator? Not that his behavior was anything new, but no simple apology made up for summoning us to such a dangerous place. Man, he didn't fucking know. Chill the fuck out. Yeah, okay. That's what it was. Yeah, there's a full-page spread of, or two-page spread of them being in, the original Omega server for like 2 seconds. God damn it. For like 2 seconds. And then bam. Is this the first time? Wait. Have I already read that? Okay. I mean, either way. You may have sent that hydrate earlier, Mike, but it's still appreciated. I'm going to take a sip. Good stuff. Good stuff, lad. Okay. "Come now." "Nope, come now," Wiseman said soothingly. "Nothing will come of dwelling on things that are in the past." He looked around, confirming that all the members of our alliance were present. "Shall we commence the strategy meeting?" Seeing that I had stopped protesting, he continued. "Presently, the wave is still on the move. While its exact location is difficult to determine, doing what we can to limit its destination points is the gist of this operation." He looked at Kite. "Right?" Taking his cue, Kite spoke up. "Yes, something I heard from Orca is that when orcas, in other words, killer whales, hunt their prey, their companions form an enclosure to block off the escape routes. But if they surround them on all sides, the prey will panic and scatter, escaping through the gaps. So, instead, they intentionally leave one wider path open, herding the prey to a convenient spot." "A convenient spot? A convenient spot?" I said. "In an online game spanning the globe, where could a convenient place be?" "The surface." "Oh, the surface," Kite said. "From the prey standpoint, that's a dead end. If our opponent is moving now, I thought maybe we could apply the same principle." "It's a good plan," Helba said. I was hardly able to understand why that would be so, but Wiseman moved on. "Based on the analysis of the virus cores supplied by Leos, Helba has developed a vaccine program," he said. "Though we call it a vaccine, it's impossible for it to effectively exterminate the wave. However, if all it needs to do is hurt it somewhere, then alright. Leave it to me. He considered. But do we have enough people? Is there a specific place we want to use the vaccine to herd the wave? I wondered. No need to worry about that, Leos said. We'll leave it to my reliable subordinates. Helba smiled at Leos's proposal, which means more pig heads. Shut up! Leos shouted. Balmung ignored him. Pig heads aside. What? Now Leos kept looking at Balmung, but Balmung paid no heed, and continued on. Your pardon, he said. What do we need to prepare? Leos said, considering. I want a data fluctuation measurement carried out. You three should investigate Omega, bigoted snowflakes capsule. Get started right away. Data fluctuation. Does that mean the 8 phases? But I nodded to Leos, and Kite nodded too. Roger. Then disperse, Wiseman commanded, and Leos, Helba, and he warped out and disappeared. That left Kite, Balmung, and me, and we walked around town a bit before heading out. What we saw was drastically different from the real Leah Fail. The shaking during our brief visit earlier had afforded us only a glimpse of numerous trees and a large stone staircase that stretched out from the Chaos Gate. It had given me the impression that it was quite a large town. Comparatively, the Leah Fail mirror server that Helba had set up could easily be mistaken for Netslum if you didn't look closely. Naturally, the usual Netslum residents weren't there, but the buildings were ruins just like the real place. Still, the shops functioned normally, and the items they dealt were identical to the ones sold in other towns in the world. Time passes. A scorched snowfield spread before our eyes when we warped to Omega Bigoted Snowflakes capsule. The three of us ran through it and aimed for the dungeon. Although the graphics were contaminated, that was the only sign of damage. I'd been braced for terrible noises, shaking like we'd encountered in town, but thankfully it had turned out to be more stable than that. The field's battle level was 68, so close to 69. However, the field's battle level was 68, however, which neither Kite nor I, not even Balmung, was at a high enough level to deal with easily. Perhaps from a desire to avoid needless combat, Kite avoided tripping as many magical portals as possible as we descended into the dungeon. But it was impossible to avoid combat entirely, so our trek toward the lowest level was interrupted by some very difficult fights. On floor B4, the lowest level, Kite soon halted us in front of a doorway where purple mist hung. Maybe something's in there, he said. Maybe one of the 8 phases? At my reply, Balmung burst out laughing. Impossible! If that were the case, Helba would have contacted us. Even Leos doesn't seem the type to have sent us to investigate without proper preparation. Had he known a phase would be here. Yeah, you're right, I said. Then I thought, if it's not a phase, maybe it's one of Harold's rooms? Anyway, let's go in, Kite said, and we advanced into the mist. As what awaited us in the room's center came into view, I shouted, Databug! The monster was like a big sea lion, clad in all too familiar luminescent green hexes. It didn't seem to have any physical tolerance, so the three of us focused on attack skills as we whittled away at its hit points. But perhaps because our character levels weren't very high, not much was coming off. Due to my extremely low defensive power, just one hit from the monster did me quite a bit of damage. Have databugs always been this strong, I wondered? Our recent fights with databugs had gone so smoothly, it was a shock to have such a rough time with this one. My recovery items drained away in a very short amount of time, and Kite drew back to take my place, focusing on recovery. Are we in trouble here? I muttered to Balmung as we fought. He sighed. We're totally outmatched. So what do we do? I said, dodging another blow. There's only one thing we can do right now, Balmung said. Fight with all your might, or run the fuck away, you idiots. Jesus. Alright. Too busy to respond, I used an item to recover skill points and then started started into an attack skill. There it is, I heard Kite shout from behind. I looked up to see the text protect break OK had appeared around the databug. Alright, I shouted as an arrow of light flew from over my shoulder and pierced the databug. The shining green hexes burst open, and a monster called a Sandhill appeared. We'd fought those before, so an easy victory was imminent. Kite returned to the battle's front, and used all his SP to smash the monster with a single blow. Unlike the databug, the Sandhill went down quickly, and as it faded away, we heard Leos's voice say, "Data measurement complete. You fulfilled your duty. Good work." Then his voice was gone, and I sighed deeply as I wondered just how high and mighty Leos thought he was. Kite noted my sigh. Let's go back to town. After we warped to Leah Fail, we disbanded our party. But then I was immediately invited back to a party by Kite. What gives? I wondered, but he seemed serious, so I hurriedly accepted the invitation. What's up? Another email arrived from Aura. Where are we? Kite said. Aura? Why do you think? And for context, Aura is on the box art for the first game. Right there, baby. And then... No, okay. But yeah, that's her on the box art. And, she's adorable. She is hinted to be, like, an AI, and as in, like, a conscious AI, and not, like, the fake-ass, not really AI that we have now. But not a fucking, like, you put shit in and shit pops back out. No, she's like an actual person, but made of artificial intelligence. Yeah, that's Aura. Our Aura. Alright. The other day, when I data drained Gore, I got another segment, Kite said. I think she probably wants it. Did she say where we should meet her? Kite sighed. I can't tell. The text is scrambled and I can't decipher it. Jeez, I laughed. Someone should chew out her parents for not teaching her better spelling. Wow, Black Rose. Kite grinned. You mean Harold and Emma? I laughed again. Anyway, let's take it easy the rest of the day, I said. We don't know when we'll need it. We don't know when we'll be needed next. You're right. Good night. Good night. I left the party, and after some restocking in Leah Fail's shops, I logged out for the night. Time passes. At the breakfast table, I munched away at my bread as Mom started talking to Dad. I heard there was an internet-related accident in a hospital somewhere, she said. Don't they say nearly all medical appliances are connected to the network these days? I'm thinking about stopping by Fumikazu's hospital to inquire about it. I froze in mid-chew, hilarious. Dad, not looking up from his newspaper, said, his hospital's a university hospital, right? It's probably perfectly safe. Mom shook her head. If the machines are all connected to the same network, a university hospital is probably no more secure than a private hospital. Dad muttered, you don't need to get so nervous about it. But Mom didn't seem to hear him. I'm worried, she fretted. Hold up. There's like a sticker on the back. Oh no, it tore out part of the book. Oh, I hated that, but the tape was there and I don't know why. And it was coming off. Damn. Fuck. Oh well. It's just the back corner. Okay. I mean, this book isn't exactly mint condition to begin with. Okay. Where are we? I'm worried, she fretted. Today's Sunday, so Akira will be home. I'll leave her to look after Kota while I'm away. Okay, Dad said, standing up and folding his newspaper. Travel safely. Mom turned to me. I can count on you to watch Kota, can't I? Sure, that's fine. I'd been thinking about spending the morning studying for finals, but there was no refusing that tone of voice. Dad said he had to stop off at his school, so after I saw my parents off, Colta and I went back to the living room. He started telling me all about his kindergarten while we happily dragged out some toys. As I had feared, studying became almost impossible. Time passes. Even though Sunday was a day off for most people, I didn't get to see Kite the entire day. Once Mom finally got home in the evening, I quickly went back to my room and entered the world. I had a feeling that if I returned and waited for the spot where we had logged out the previous day, I'd come in contact with him, eventually. Leaving my computer's monitor active instead of using the FMD, I paused Black Rose by the Chaos Gate and opened my books to study. I had a reason for waiting. Since Kite was just a middle school student, he wasn't likely to be in the habit of watching the news. But the accident Mom had mentioned earlier had been reported online as well, so Kite might have heard about it. Mom had reported that Fumikazu's hospital was safe, this time. There was no guarantee that the networked medical equipment wouldn't be compromised at some point in the future. The thought was unbearable. It was obvious that the strange happenings in the real world were linked to the game. As my desire for quick action and my knowledge of the pointlessness of being overeager roiled in conflict within me, Kite materialized. "Black Rose?" he said, noticing me. "Hey," I said. "What's wrong?" "Did you see the news?" I said. "About Niizato University Hospital? It has to be connected in some way, you know." I couldn't help but think, what if that had happened at the hospital Fumikazu's in? I know I can't just sit still. Oh, I know, oh, no. Now I just can't sit still. "Yeah," Kite said flatly. "That's all? Yeah?" I wasn't really looking for sympathy, but I had expected more than that from Kite, and my voice inadvertently rose. "I feel the same as you," Kite said. "I want to remove the wave from the world as soon as possible, but, you know..." He paused. "Everyone's finally on the same team. I'm sure things will work out, so we shouldn't panic." I knew all too well, but... I know that, but... Kazu, and even Orca... Orca's alright, Kite said, uncharacteristically hanging his head. "Hey, you mean the hospital Orca's at," I started to say, and then I swallowed my words. Kite never mentioned it, but maybe the hospital Orca was in was Niizato? Is that it? "Yeah," Kite said, "but he was alright." I couldn't believe I'd been so insensitive. Sorry, I didn't... Kite was under pressure too, yet what would happen if I, the older one, allowed myself to panic? I had to stay calm. Not knowing what else to say, I cast my eyes about aimlessly and saw... Huh? At some point during our conversation, a familiar Netslum resident had come to stand next to me. "Hey, Kite, the guy next to me." "Oh, hey, Kite, the guy next to me." I lined up the cursor and his name popped up. Spiritus. I was pretty sure I recognized him as the fast-talking, enigmatic NPC we had met before, Kite slowly approached Spiritus and said, Spiritus spun quickly around to face him, and as usual started speaking so quickly that we had to pay close attention so we didn't miss anything. In my own way, I have thought things over, and I reached the conclusion that I should operate with all of you," he said. "There seems to be a mysterious room at oh my god. I need to bookmark this fucking page where it shows the fucking name of the fucking root town, because this is absurd that I keep forgetting. .hack root towns. Yes. Sigma. Close, you stupid ad. Alright. Sigma. Hilarious. Sigma grind set. Anyway. Where are we? Oh, yeah. I should cooperate with all of you, he said. There seems to be a mysterious room at Sigma. Screaming Wind Sands. Oh, Screaming Wind Sands Fate Castle. If you get involved, you might be able to reform this world. Then he suddenly warped out. Kite and I kept looking in mute amazement at the spot he had vacated. I turned to Kite and smiled. Looks like there's a lot expected of you. Reform the world, he says. Kite rolled his eyes. I don't have that kind of power. I considered that. But don't you? When you use that bracelet? This? Kite said, looking at his right arm. We weren't in a party at the moment, so I couldn't see the bracelet, but I knew it was there. Anyway, I said, a mysterious room. Could that mean Harold's room? Kite nodded. Could be. Then let's head there now. Yeah. After we transferred to Fort Oaf, we headed for the area Spiritus had told us about. The battle level was 72... was 70. 2 levels higher than where we'd gone the day before. And it was a protected field. What do we do? Kite asked while he brought up the gate hacking menu. Like there's any need to ask. I didn't respond, so Kite threw another question my way. You okay on items? I stocked up. Kite being his usual self, always wanting information no matter what. Then let's go. I gotta itch. Oh, that's better. And I gotta move them back to Fort Oaf. There we go. Take another sip. What is this? Yo. 10 creepy. Yes. Okay. Okay. Preparing ourselves for the tough battle in the area, 5 levels beyond our experience, we warped into a scorched meadow. As we had on the previous day, we aimed for the dungeon while avoiding as many magical portals as we could. Still, the dungeon was so far distant that by the time we found the entrance, we each gained enough experience from unavoidable fights to go up a level. Looks like we're leveling up, Kite said, smiling. True, but that's not our goal, I said. Let's just get down the bottom of the dungeon. I'll get down to the bottom of the dungeon, excuse me. Sure. We took a short rest to recover skill points. When we passed through the entrance, the moment we entered the dungeon, a strange sentence scrolled through the log, and we heard a voice seemingly out of nowhere. Evolution does not always mean progress. Huh? I cocked my head. It's Harold, Kite murmured. Harold? I whispered. One of his notes? Probably. Kite urged me forward. We advanced through the dungeon warily, dealing with whatever popped out of the magical portals in our own way. When we descended to floor B2, the voice spoke again, seeming to continue the same thought. Evolution sometimes leads to an undesired vector. There wasn't much to that floor. We were able to battle through it quickly and were greeted with another sentence on the next floor down. It is arrogant for one to reject change because it is undesirable. So what do you suppose Harold's trying to say? I mused. I can only wonder, Kite replied. What makes me wonder is how he can say the word arrogant so assertively, I joked. Kite smiled. Change, progress, evolution. I seem to recall there having been an earlier note along the same lines. This stuff Harold was saying, who was he trying to teach those things? Rejection of change is the rejection of possibilities. Oh, Rejection of change is the rejection of possibilities, came the next sentence. Maybe he means aura? I murmured. Kite disagreed. No, I have a feeling it's something else. When had Harold inserted notes like this into the game? Was helping out his daughter the right course of action for us, the ones who had only stumbled across Harold's rule? Anxiety building in our hearts, we pressed on. The voice came yet another time. Allow diversity. What does that mean? I said. Who knows? Kite stood still, perhaps checking his log. Hold on, let me check that volume. That seems weird. It's weirdly loud. Oh well. Okay. Where are we? Who knows? Kite stood still, perhaps checking his log. Does he mean we should approve of change? I didn't list the ramblings of a genius among the things I understood easily. With few clues toward what Harold's voice was trying to convey, we started walking toward the rear of the lowest level. Floor B5. Entering the next room, we suddenly found ourselves transported into one of Harold's rooms. There was no warning. No doorway filled with purple mist. We arrived with no chance to prepare. Before us stood a hilltop ginkgo, whose falling yellow ginkgo tree, whose falling yellow leaves drifted down through the evening air. Beneath the tree was a woman with long black skirt, with a long black skirt fringed with lace, whose eyes were shadowed beneath a parasol. She just stood there silently, her mouth in a perpetual smile. Apparently she didn't see us. Something about this tableau was hauntingly familiar. Emma, I cried. It's Emma Wieland. Kite looked at me, surprised, and then I stared at the hill with its ginkgo. The woman you were investigating, Black Rose? Right, I said, and then I remembered something. But wasn't Harold supposed to be the one who was waiting? Wait, what? Oh, sorry. Emma Wieland reportedly had died in an accident, leaving Harold waiting for her beneath a ginkgo tree. The scene before us was similar, but it was opposite to what had happened in reality. I reviewed what Hagia had told me. It was hours before news of Emma's death reached Harold, who continued waiting for her under the boughs of a large ginkgo tree on top of a hill. Why would Harold have left a scene like this in the game? I couldn't help but feel it was strange. I took a resolute step toward Emma, the first movement Kite or I had made since being transported to the room, and a strange voice started speaking. Oh, that's a cool looking sketch. It's them looking at the hill with the ginkgo tree. Beautiful. Anyway. Over the Keel Mountains meets an ape with human speech. The ape asks, "What clings to you? Bear it you cannot. Accept it you cannot. But hidden it is from you. Recite its name." God damn it. As I looked back through the log to review, Kite said, "It's a fragment." That was certainly what the literary style seemed to indicate. Hey, this part about something clinging, I said. Huh? I honestly didn't know how entangled the epitaph was with the world, but the phrase suggested just one thing to my mind. Could that be Kubia? The thing that clings to you, or to Aura. Bear it you cannot. Accept it you cannot, Kite murmured. I don't really get the hidden it is from you part, though, I admitted. Yeah, really, Kite said. Who do you suppose it means by you? If it's about Kubia, then maybe Aura? Why couldn't it mean you, Kite? I said. Me? Kite sounded doubtful. Well, I guess not, I said. Maybe I'm digging a bit too deep here. Just what was Kubia's goal in not allowing Kite to meet with Aura? Was it to prevent something irreversible that would happen if they did meet? As I pondered that question, Kite said, "Well, we might as well head back for now." I nodded nervously to him, and we returned to Fort Oaf. When we arrived there, I saw someone I didn't expect. He was standing there looking helpless. Elk! Elk didn't even greet us, but said, "Mia's nowhere to be found." Sounding on the verge of tears. See, like I said, baby boy. The way he said it, he could have been looking for her non-stop. He could have been looking for her non-stop since the last time we'd seen him. "Oh, you can't get in touch with her either?" I said. That reminded Kite of something, and he looked straight at me. "Oh yeah, Black Rose. Didn't you say you wanted to talk with Mia about something?" "Ah, yeah, I did," I said non-committally. "Elk, maybe Mia quit playing the game," Kite said. "That's stupid. As far as I knew, he assumed Mia was a player character, so it was a completely natural suggestion." "She wouldn't do that," Elk declared forcefully. Then he fell into an awkward silence. I thought of voicing support for Kite's suggestion, but knowing Elk's feelings, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wondered what to do, or I wondered what I should do. I wanted to talk to Mia and Elk. I wanted to talk to Mia, and Elk was also looking for her. I had the feeling that coordinating our search would increase our probability of meeting up with her. Besides, Mia always would try to protect Elk. If Matcha, our next major opponent, did turn out to be Mia, and if Elk was there with us, that Matcha that was Mia might not want to fight. Perhaps then we would get a chance to talk. "I know," I said. "You should give us a... Oh, I know," I said. "You should give us a hand, Elk. If Mia's still here, we might be... that might be how we meet up with her." As if digesting my words, Elk slowly looked up from the ground. "Help you? With what?" he murmured. "Well, things have been getting kind of weird in the world lately, right?" I said. "We've been investigating why it's gotten this way." "Oh," Elk said, pondering. "Yeah, okay." He turned and looked straight at Kite. "Mia seems to be attracted to unusual events. Would you help me too?" Unusual events, that's funny. Kite turned to face him and smiled. "That decides it," said Kite. Elk smiled in return and warped out. "I'm sorry I asked him without talking it over with you first," I told Kite. "Huh? That's okay. We'll be better off having Elk with us than if we were just searching randomly." Where are we? "Thanks." "No, thank you," Kite said, smiling. "That was a very Black Rose decision, I think." What the fuck kind of line is that? That's so your online avatar. People don't talk like that anymore. "But," I said, hesitating. Kite raised an eyebrow. "Elk thinks this is all just some event," I said. Kite nodded. I never got the chance to explain it to him in detail. He was always with Mia. "Yeah. But you sure it's okay to get him involved? We won't take him anywhere dangerous." "Good point." I fell silent, thinking, is this really for the best? Kite broke the silence. "Well, I'm done for the day." I nodded. "All right, take care." I watched Kite log off, then I was left alone with my worries. If Mia is Matcha, I had blurted that out back there so suddenly, and if we ended up having to fight Matcha, it would mean I had advised Elk to do something horrible. But if there was a chance we could see Mia, Elk would probably come no matter how dangerous it was. I found myself quickly coming to regret having invited him. And that's where we end the chapter. The first chapter. That's a fucking thick-ass chapter. Damn. Oh, hey, we just hit the 1 hour mark, which means it will soon be time for an ad break. So get your snackies, get your bathroom breaks in. I've got a bag of Takis opened. It's the crunchy fajita kind. The regular kind, the lime flavoring is too bitter to me. Too powerful. But the crunchy fajita ones are fucking fantastic. My tea's a little under half empty. And for me, the glass half full, glass half empty perspective is all about context. If you're pouring liquid into a glass and you fill it halfway, it's half full. And you fill it the rest of the way, it's full. If you drink it down to the halfway point, then it's half empty. Come on, ad break. Well, I think with this I'll be able to tell specifically what time the ad starts. There it is. So at about 1:02:45. Good evening, VOD watchers. Hope you've been enjoying the story so far. Reading this is making me want to play the games again. And I have them. But I haven't beaten the fourth one because it gets real hard. And I'm so worried about that because the only time I've been able to beat it is on an emulator. And so, yeah, I worry that I may not be able to beat it due to a lack of save states. I really, really wish they remade Dot Hack, the original 4-part Dot Hack games, man. They're so fun, but they are not beginner friendly at all. They are very beginner unfriendly. In terms of leveling, in terms of the level, like, cap, not the level cap, but, what is it? The level jump, the jump in levels that some worlds get, that some story mandated worlds get to. Now, granted, level grinding is pretty good, because the only way to grind levels is to go into dungeons and areas, activate portals, kill monsters, and then if you're in a dungeon, you may as well go to the bottom and see what items you can get, and then sell those items to buy them, and sell the treasure to buy more items, etc., etc. And plus, there is an item, I think they're called sprint shoes. It's a consumable item that doubles your speed, your walking speed, and everything for a limited amount of time. I think it's called Speed Charm. Either way, they're very handy for level grinding, especially since like not a lot of times, but the characters' walking animations are very slow. And so just being able to, being able to sprint around real fast is very handy. Hey, we're back to the original Dot Hack soundtrack. God, that's so good. Oh, we're back. Cool. We have returned just in time for the next chapter. Mia's True Character is the name of this chapter. I dreamed... bad, awful fucking cadence. Oh, so I need to turn that down a little bit. Okay. I dreamed. It was the same dream that had prompted me to come to the world in the first place. I never thought I would have that dream again. There she was, with rose petals scattered all around and clad in black, in a black evening dress. That other me in the middle of the wilderness. Blood oozed from rose thorn scratches on her arms and legs. Her blank face was expressionless. She had nothing to say, nothing to give me. We stood there wordless in the darkness. I could feel the heat radiating from her body. Are you that? How fucking close are you to her? Damn. No other details of the dream stuck with me when I woke, but a lingering, heartwarming emotion put me in a good mood. Until I was reminded of that other dream. Oops. There we go. Boop. Boop. Alright. Anyway. Until I was reminded of that other dream. The one that Mia had talked about having. But what about Mia? And why had aromatic grass prompted her to talk about it? In her dream, she had been called Matcha. How must that have felt, being called by a different name? And who was it who did the calling? I pulled on my school uniform top. I once again regretted inviting Elk on our quest. So great was the regret that it even made me tremble. Matcha is definitely the next phase in line if they keep coming in order. Knowing that, why did I go and invite Elk? I looked out the window and sighed deeply. The sky was gray, was the gray, lifeless color of full winter, and somewhere along the line, since I'd awakened, the warm feeling from my dream had vanished. School that morning was filled with the buzz of students who had finished all their finals and were now eagerly counting down the days until winter break started. My test results had been worse than my friends'. And in the competition for winter tennis season starter spots, I had lost to Natori, who was doing quite well after her attitude adjustment. Hilarious. I also didn't care about any of the winter break events that my friends were so anxiously awaiting. I must not have been doing a very good job of hiding my lack of excitement, because Shoko kept trying to draw me into different lines of conversation. But all I could do was smile at her wanly. Wanly? W-A-N-L-Y? Wanly? Not familiar with that word. It's a new one. Shoko knew about Fumikazu, and there was sadness in her eyes as I made non-committal responses. Between exams and winter break, she had class only in the morning, but there was no way I could go straight home and log on to the world. I still had tennis club practice in the afternoon, even though I was no longer a starter, but our coach wasn't a slave driver, so he ended practice before sunset. Itchy face. Oh, that's better. I forgot to put up my glasses today. I'm gonna raise that eye just higher. Where are we? Okay. As I was carting the net and some other equipment to the storage room, Asaoka came up from behind, carrying the tennis ball cage. Feeling let down after getting dropped from the starters, she said. Huh? No, it's nothing like that. She worriedly peered at my face. Are you sure? I was worried, but not about tennis. I was worried about Mia. I was worried that Mia was Matcha, our likely next opponent. I was worried about Harold's note, about Fitzshell's ominous prediction, and I was wondering whether I should tell Asaoka. I mean, you've told her everything already, you might as well. Maybe she could sense that, because she did. Did you find out something else? I was silent. Perhaps that confirmed her hunch. You already told me everything that happened up until the last time we talked, she said. Please let me see it through to the end with you. So we walked and talked about what had happened in the world since the battle with Fitzshell. Though I kept backtracking and probably added too many details, Asaoka kept encouraging me to go on, and I eventually spun out the whole tale. As she was stowing the tennis balls, Asaoka said, "Can I tell Hagiya the news?" "Please don't. Fuck him." I paused warily. Alright, I said, slowly and intentionally looking in the direction of the music room, where Hagia probably was. Then a troubling thought crossed my mind. Hagia would never decide to check out the world on his own, would he? I doubt it, but fuck him. Considering how strong-willed he was, I couldn't say for sure what that he definitely wouldn't ever log in. Maybe I should warn him again not to, I thought. Then I realized that might backfire and prompt him to log on of sheer orneriness. I've never heard the word ornery with a ness in it at the end of it, but here we are. Calling the network trouble the other day a coincidence would be overly optimistic, wouldn't it? Asaoka murmured, startling me. I couldn't meet her gaze. It's not like I'm trying to cause problems like that, I thought. The effort to resolve this chain of events that centered on Kite had even brought a CC Corp administrator to work together with a hacker, and normal players who should have been off enjoying the game were doing all they could to work things through. But so far, we'd had little to show for it. The guilt and frustration I was feeling must have been written on my face, because Asaoka's voice turned deliberately cheerful. Don't worry about it so much, Asaoka. Oh, don't worry about it so much. Wait, what? I think there's a fucking typo, because the quote is from Asaoka, but in the quote, she's saying don't worry so much, Asaoka. I think they meant to put Akira. Don't worry about it so much, Akira. What will be, will be. What will be, will be. The words echoed in my mind as I went home. Is that really the way things are? They were dangerous words. If only fate was going to determine what happened, no matter how hard we strove, then our struggle was meaningless. But if that was true, I wasn't about to just sit back and let things happen. I had to do whatever I could to try to change things to the way I knew they should be. I was already trying as hard as I could. Had I worked so hard only to reach a point where I could say what will be will be? Not yet. I feel like there's still something I can do. But because there was no sign yet that the end result would be the outcome I was most anxious for, I brooded. Would it make it easier if I thought the outcome was determined by fate? Would it help me face my next battle with less trepidation? Perhaps, but changing my feelings wasn't as easy as pushing a button on a computer game. Though I was filled with anxiety about our coming confrontation with Matcha, I headed for my computer as soon as I arrived home. Time passes. Before logging in, I checked my mail, but there were no messages concerning the operation, no summons from Wiseman, nor were there any important posts on the BBS. So when I logged in, I left Fort Oaf, where I'd last seen Elk and Kite, and transferred to Leah Fale to visit the town's shops. I'd run out of recovery items and scrolls during our trip to Sigma, Screaming Wind Sands Fate Castle, where Spiritus had told us to check out the strange room, so I restocked with as many as I could afford. I needed to make sure we were prepared for any dangerous situation. So she has returned to to the NetSlum Mirror Omega server. Oh, itchy. I need to make sure. Oh, I also recently had been made painfully aware of how low my character level was. So I figured that while we were waiting for a summons, I could use the time to level up alone. The area I gated to showed the typical signs of virus contamination, so I took great care as I advanced through the field and the dungeon until I found the God statue. At its lowest level, God statue at its lowest level. I was wary that a data bug might emerge from one of the magical portals, but as I went back and forth between the town and the area over and over, my worry disappeared in the mechanical routine. How many times does this make? I wondered to myself as I gated back to the area once again. When I realized someone else was there, someone very familiar. Mia! I cried, starting toward her. Hearing me, she turned in my direction, and her cold expression stopped me in my tracks. my hand extended part way. If Mia is Matcha, are you okay? I said, anxiety adding a tremble to my voice. She just stared at me in complete silence. I hurriedly said, Elk is looking for you. He was really worried. He thought maybe you had quit the game. When not even the word Elk drew any sort of reaction, I said, Mia? Have you forgotten about Elk, even? I stared at her face as she pondered the name, and then she slowly murmured, Elk. It was then that her expression finally changed to one of agony. I can't see Elk anymore, she said, as if forcing out the words. I must not see him. I cocked my head. What does that mean? You must not. As I stood there looking at her, she gated out as if running away. Hey, hold on, I cried. My voice just echoed in the space she had vacated. I considered sending an email to Elk right away, but decided against it. Telling him the words she had so painfully squeezed out would only be cruel. Mia's decision not to see Elk, it was almost like a breakup, and pain is involved anytime a parting of ways isn't mutual, all the more so if the other person is important to you. No longer caring about leveling up, I just sat and pondered for a while. I was about to log out and call it a night when my computer notified me that an email had arrived. The message was from Wiseman, saying that the next operation was ready to be carried out. After going back to town to replenish the items I'd used while leveling up, I immediately headed to Netslum for the meeting. My bed was calling, but it would be hours until I got any rest. Time passes. God, it's such a good song. Alright, anyway. When I arrived in that slum, I saw Elk standing alongside Wiseman, Balmung, and Helba. Wiseman had said the next operation was set, which probably meant we would fight one of the phases, Matcha, and Elk would be there to fight at our side. That's what I had gotten him into by inviting him to help out. He looked out of place and was glancing around nervously. What will be, will be. Asaoka's words echoed again in my mind. Some part of me could not believe that, but I forced my conscious self to accept it for the time being. I couldn't let worry hamper my actions. I greeted everyone, then I looked around and said, so Kite's still not here? He will probably be here soon, Wiseman said. Balmung laughed. Speak of the devil, look. I followed his gaze and saw transfer rings finished depositing the object of my inquiry. Kite greeted everyone, then he said, Where's Leos? I hadn't even noticed Leos wasn't there. I'd been so preoccupied upon seeing Elk that I'd just assumed Leos was hanging around Helba and Wiseman. I can't let myself miss important details like that, she thought to herself. The Peghead's getting into position with his subordinates, Helba told Kite. She nodded to Wiseman, who took her cue. We've confirmed that Pighead's report... We've confirmed from said Pighead's report that the wave's appearance is not random, Wiseman said. Leos' subordinates have positioned themselves in areas where the wave appears frequently. Once they catch sight of it, we'll begin fencing it in, using the vaccine to restrict the direction of its movement. We'll herd the wave to Omega, cruel, vindictive scars, and then we'll crush it. It sounded like the plan was to make use of the tactic Kite had explained before, how killer whales drive their prey to the surface. I could feel the anxiety start to trickle at my heart, but I knew that we were all in this together, and that it would all work out. At least that's what I told myself. All of you are to stand by the lowest level of Omega Cruel Vindictive Scars. That's Helba. All of you are to stand by the lowest level of Omega Cruel Vindictive Scars, Helba said, and we nodded. But just as we were all keyed up to go, Wiseman turned to Kite and said, Now then, Kite, the name of this operation? Kite smiled and looked at each of us. He cried in a clear voice, "Commence Operation Orca!" Aw, what a nice send-up to his friend. Affirmative. Affirmative, Balmung and Wiseman and the others called out simultaneously, but my nervousness was taking root, and I was unable to respond. Well, Omega, Cruel Vindictive Scars is protected, said Helba, handing Kite something, probably a virus core, considering she used the word protected. Make use of this, Helba said. Thanks. Kite accepted it into his inventory. Be careful, Helba said, putting her hand on his shoulder. Her words resounded strongly in my heart as well. Operation Orca, a good name, said Balmung, and Kite smiled. Leaving Wiseman and Helba behind in Netslum, Kite, Balmung, Elk, and I returned to Carmina Gadelica. That was one too many of us. The maximum party amount in the world was limited to 3. Kite with his bracelet was the core of the operation, so of course he would go, but he had to pick among the 3 of us. Who's Kite going to leave behind? I silently wished Elk would be spared this fight, but he pleaded vigorously to go. Take me with you! I started composing a flash mail to Kite. This could be the matcha fight, you know, quoting the message. But before I could send it, Kite added Elk to the party. And then me, Black Rose. Balmung had no comment about not being picked. Perhaps he had been told about Elk's situation. Black Rose? Kite said, and I hurriedly turned toward him. You ready? We're beyond the time to ask questions. Let's just get on with it. I'm fine on items. I can go anytime. Me too, Elk said timidly. Then let's go, Kite cried, and Elk and I nodded. Be careful, Balmung said, looking at us each in turn. Yeah, see ya, said Kite, and the image in our party's FMD switched to the gate hacking screen. Kite inserted virus cores into 4 crystals found there. I assumed the one Helba had given him was included in their number. Elk and I silently waited for him to finish. The one who had taught Kite how to hack into protected areas was Mia. How had that made her feel at the time? Elk, who was always by Mia's side, must have been there when she had taught Kite. As Elk and I watched Kite break the protection, was it a painful reminder for him? We were using the method Mia had taught, and we were very possibly using it in order to catch her in our trap. Kite filled all the recesses in the crystal with his virus cores, and the warp process completed. The scene spread out before us now was very familiar. Here and there on the deep red magma plain, contaminated scorches stained the ground. Long, narrow streams of characters crept through the sky. As if to assure us we took in that ominous scene, the voice of Leos spoke. As if to assure us as we took in that ominous scene, the voice of Leos spoke to us from the background. The wave will be heading that way shortly. Be fully on your guard. Roger, Kite said, brandishing his twin blades. Then he looked at each of us in turn. Okay, let's get to the lowest level of the dungeon. That's the power of the Keyblade. We nodded, and Kite led the way. Elk acted as support from the rear. In front, Kite and I made short work of any monsters we came across. The trip through the dungeon was an easy one, but when we got to the lowest level, there was nothing there. No purple mist, no data bug, no nothing. Only silence accompanied the bare stone walls. There's nothing here? Kite murmured. As if in response, Leos's voice spoke again. Something strange is happening. The wave is not moving as predicted in response to being herded. Something strange. Leos, what do you mean? Kite asked immediately. The data capacity is decreasing. It's gone. Target vanished. I don't understand why. The voice trailed off. Like we understood any better than him. What's going on? I shouted, if only to keep the creepy silence from returning to that desolate place. My voice reverberated throughout the dungeon. What about the operation? Now Helba's voice sounded in our ears, confirming abnormal increase in the data capacity of Sigma, graceful, tempting, fallen angel. If you leave at once, you'll get there in time. Go. Sigma, graceful, tempting, fallen angel. Hurry. So they're back to Sigma. Excuse me. Okay. In the past, she always had seemed unflappable, but now there was urgency in her voice. We weren't sure why, but nevertheless, Kite used an item to return us to the field, and we traveled to the indicated area after switching route towns. It wasn't a protected area, but it was still contaminated. So, to the dungeon? I said. Kite nodded. Then he turned to Elk. Elk, you alright? Yeah, Elk said hesitantly, as he stood rooted to the spot behind me. Are you feeling okay? I said, looking at him, but the image of his avatar offered no clues. He turned his face from my gaze, and I murmured. He turned his face from my gaze and murmured, I want to see Mia. He forced the words out and gripped his staff tightly. That's right, I thought, reminding myself that Elk's interest in our quest was due only to the chance that we might run across Mia. Whether we met friend or foe, anything that didn't bring us closer to Mia meant nothing to Elk. Kite and I stood there perplexed for a while, as Elk showed no signs of movement. Helba said to hurry, and I wanted to get there before whatever noticed us in the other field and run off in this direction decided to bolt again. But we couldn't leave Elk just standing there, so we waited, not having moved at all from the point where we'd warped in. After an interminable silence, Elk finally, slowly raised his head. Sorry, he said. Let's go. You okay? I asked. Not that I knew what had been wrong in the first place. But Elk nodded at my words. Yeah. Kite brandished his twin blades again and took off running. Elk and I were hot on his trail. Finding the dungeon entrance easily, we rushed inside. There were few magical portals inside the dungeon, but what monsters emerged had high levels, so we advanced cautiously. But something was wrong. Elk was acting as support, but his reaction time was slow. Kite turned and faced him. You sure you're okay? He asked. Yeah, Elk said. I have a feeling that Mia is here. Ooh, he knows. Just don't force yourself to do something you're not up for, I said, and Elk nodded. There was no way that Mia would just happen to be somewhere we had chased one of the phases. What's here isn't Mia. It's Matcha. My footfalls were heavy as we descended to the lowest level. Helba had told us to hurry, so there was no way we could turn back now. It was unfair to Elk to have to be involved, but all we could do was press on. Kite and I kept making sure that Elk was following us from behind. Suspended in front of the hindmost room, wow, never used that word before, on the lowest level of the dungeon was a wavering light purple mist. I stopped to prepare for combat when Elk slipped past Kite and me and stepped forward. Elk? I cried, but he disappeared into the mist. Let's follow him. With no time to cast recovery or strengthening magic, Kite and I plunged into the room after Elk. Normally, after passing through the mist, we would find ourselves transported to some other place, but this time, to our shock and surprise, we were faced with just an ordinary dungeon room, but it wasn't empty. Mia was there, squatting on the ground and clutching her knees. Standing beside her was Elk, hopelessly at a loss for words. Kite and I approached them nervously. I have a bad feeling about this, I thought. All my suspicions were pretty much confirmed. Leos and Helba had said that one of the 8 phases of the wave was here, and it was Mia who had awaited us in the final room. I flash-mailed Kite. Hey. Is it a coincidence that Mia's here? I don't think so. Do you think Mia is Matcha too? Wordlessly, Kite turned from scrutinizing Mia to look at me. I want to think that's not the case. Kite returned his focus to Mia, who was just sitting there, holding her head. Elk, she whispered. Who am I? Johnny the tackling Alzheimer's patient. Sorry. Who am I? Oh, that was always one of my friend's favorite bits from Scrubs. As we drew closer, Elk paid no attention to us at all, but he smiled at Mia. You're Mia, of course, he said softly. Not meeting his gaze, Mia murmured, I have no memory. There was no way her behavior could be explained away as just fatigue. Seeing her like that made my heart ache. Even though there were many things I wanted to ask her, there was nothing I could do in that situation. Are we too late? Not able to find any words, I stood back and watched Mia and Elk attentively. As Elk stood there silently, Mia began to tremble as she held her head. It's true. I exist only in the world, she whispered. The only memory I have was when I am the... Her body shook even more than before, in ways that were not among the game's built-in expression commands. No controller movement could have produced such results. Feeling powerless to react, I just stood there. The shaking wasn't some status abnormality, the result of an in-game poison or spell. I couldn't cure it with an item. Maybe things had deviated from the rule set of the world. Things like the abilities of Kite's bracelet could not be fixed according to the rules. I looked at Kite's bracelet, which, as if reacting to something, calmly blinked on and off. But what was it reacting to? Suddenly, Mia's head began to shake crazily, and her trembling crescendoed in convulsions. No, stop it, she shouted in a harsh voice. Mia, Elk cried out. Mia's changed voice shouted again. I want to keep being me. Kite ran toward her, leaving my side. She flinched at the sound of his footfalls. Stay back, she cried. Don't look at me. Mia, Kite called. But it wasn't the Mia we knew who... But it wasn't the Mia we knew who his voice reached. A red light flashed from her body, engulfed by the light her character emitted. Colors across the spectrum. The shape was still Mia's, but the surface of her body was completely wrapped in the light, and her features were impossible to distinguish. Worst of all, within the light, strings of characters raced around at wild speeds. The being of light who had been Mia turned slowly in Elk's direction. Elk, she said. I'm sorry. Elk wordlessly shook his head. If Mia meant to say anything else, we never heard it. Instead, something spread in all directions from where Mia sat. Something pink, with the texture of gills. Elk and Kite, who had been close to her, stumbled backwards from it. From where I stood at some distance, all I could do was stare at in blank amazement. Before our eyes, Mia was transforming into Matcha, and we were there to fight her. But how could Kite and I prepare our hearts for such a task? Elk probably had no idea that Mia was anything other than herself. When I thought about what he must have been feeling, it made the situation unbearable. Mia. The gills extending from Mia's base went out for several meters, and when they slowly curled up with her luminescent figure at their center. Before our eyes, the shape formed a pink sphere like a flower bud. In the blink of an eye, the barren dungeon room transformed into the scenery where we always faced off against the phases. I ignored the urge to look around, keeping my eyes nailed to the pink sphere that Kite and Elk were still backing away from. Glad that I had kept my distance, I saw the sphere begin to open slowly like a flower, blooming. Noise rent the air around us. The earth shook, fighting the urge to tear the FMD goggles off my face. I found my eyes riveted to the sphere. So, Mia really was Matcha after all. Within half a minute, the bud had blossomed completely. Inside it, Mia was nowhere to be seen. In her place, all that remained was the upper half of a wide-eyed woman. Or at least, I assumed it was female from the way the breasts stuck out. Hilarious. From the hips down, it was all spreading gills, making it look like a seated figure in a long, flowing dress. The figure in the center of the circle opened her mouth and yelled, sending a shockwave out in all directions. I covered my head with both arms to fend it off. Elk thrust his staff into the ground and hung to it, desperately to keep from getting blown away. Still under the full brunt of the shockwave, I stared at Matcha. She was looking at Elk. Itchy. Oh, that's better. Mia! Elk screamed, but it was futile. A flash of red light coiled around his image. It coiled and tightened, squeezing him until Elk's figure burst apart in glowing strings of characters. His name vanished from the status bar at the bottom of the display, leaving only Kite and me in the party. Elk? I typed furiously, shooting him a flash mail, hoping against hope that he would respond. And he promptly did. Where's Mia? Elk, calm down, are you alright? Where am I? I've got to hurry and get back to Mia. Elk, you're okay, right? Forget about me, what about Mia? I looked at the figure of Matcha looming before Kite and me. In it, there was no trace of the kind Mia that Elk had known for so long. I always had considered white lies. Wait, what? I always had considered white lies to be hypocritical, but at the moment, calming Elk down seemed to be more important than telling the truth. He seemed to be safe where he was, considering he could use flash mail, but I was worried about what Matcha had done to him. Mia seems to be alright, but more important, are you okay? Mia, I'm coming right back. Coming back? Where are you? In front of the dungeon, I think. He's by the dungeon entrance? I wondered. Had Mia, not wanting Elk to understand her true identity, transported him outside the dungeon with the last bit of her reason left before her transformation was complete? If that was so, then Elk was special to her after all. I can't get into the dungeon. What should I do? Mia's in the dungeon, isn't she? He can't get in? I'd never had heard of a dungeon entrance being protected, but for Mia, who knew how to cancel area protections, putting a protection on a dungeon entrance probably was no trouble at all. She is. I gazed at Matcha. She's right in front of me. I'll get there one way or another. Don't let Mia go anywhere. There was such pain evident behind his words that I was unable to respond. I timidly spoke to Kite, who was now standing beside me. Elk was thrown outside the dungeon. So he's okay? He's upset, but he seems alright. Kite nodded. Okay. Now that we knew Elk was safe, we stared confrontationally at Matcha, and in an instant a purple wave filled our displays, wriggling wildly in the center. With the appearance of the wave, the flashmail interface went unresponsive. And thus we have Matcha. I love those blue arms, they're gorgeous. Gorgeous. The Temptress. Oh, those are eyeballs. Damn. I forgot those were eyeballs. That's crazy, bro. Anyway. The wave's appearance was the harbinger of a phase, and in front of the wave was the beautiful, wide-eyed woman, Matcha. The two of us hesitated before her. Kite, I said uneasily. Kite readied his twin blades and nodded. I know. Mia was Matcha. Without hesitation, Matcha charged at us. Unsure what to do, I readied my massive sword. Massive sword count 5. If it was at all possible, I didn't want to fight. When I thought about Elk, all urge to fight drained away, and as if Kite felt the same way, he just stood there. At this rate, he whispered, and I mentally filled in the rest. We'll be wiped out. So I cast recovery and strengthening magic to start out. I didn't feel like fighting, but it was kill or be killed, and we had to keep ourselves from being taken out. Though I knew that, I couldn't make my body attack her. At my side, Kite showed none of my indecision as he slashed at Matcha with his twin blades. Kite, I shouted. That's Mia! Kite choked out a grieved response as he slashed away. Mia's suffering. We have to save her. Save her? I cried. How? Using that? I looked at Kite's flashing bracelet. It's the only thing I can do, he said, firing off attack skills repeatedly. Kite. Seeing his determination, I turned my own sword against Matcha and glared at her. Is this something possessing Mia, or was she Matcha all along? 2 identities, 1 body, is what I'm saying. I had felt bad for Elk, but I turned my sword on Matcha and charged. Kite and I never had face-to-face without a third-party member, though we had plenty of recovery items if we didn't use them prudently at our hit points. Or if we didn't use them prudently, our hit points would soon be depleted. So, we doggedly kept up our attack, whittling away at Matcha's hit points until Kite could data drain. I accidentally bumped my ingrown toenail into the part of the fucking desk. Each time we cut at Matcha, I cried out bitterly. The image in my FMD blurred, and I reached through a gap to wipe away a tear. Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. We were fighting in earnest now, and Matcha suddenly held up one arm. To our shock and dismay, a bracelet like Kite's appeared on that arm, and Kite's body rose into the air. "Kite!" I screamed. I somehow had made it through being data drained several times, but if Kite did not, he ended up comatose. I didn't think that would happen, but anxiety racked me. Unable to take my eyes off his floating form, I opened my inventory menu so I could use recovery items on him, without delay. The data drain hit, and icons indicating paralysis, charm, poison, sleep, and confusion lined up at Kite's status bar. I quickly used the recovery items I had lined up, and the icons winked out. "Thanks," Kite said. That was a merciless attack. I eyed Matcha as it slowly moved away from us, dragging its gills. "Looks like it's totally forgotten it's Mia," Kite said, looking at the phase. "Yeah." I nodded. Mia had forgotten herself and us. We regrouped briefly, then we approached again and attacked. Matcha repeatedly fired back at us with attack spells. Suddenly the words "suspicious seduction" scrolled by the log.
What?
It was a spell I wasn't familiar with, and the number of hit points it stole from us was not very high, but it left me charmed, and I found myself attacking Kite while I was under someone else's control. "Kite, run!" I cried, but he had been hit by the same spell, so on our screens the characters of Blackrose and Kite started fighting, almost wiping each other out before we could get them back under control. "Should one of us hang back and do recovery?" I said, using a recovery item. "If we're both hit by that spell again at the same time, we're done for. If we killed each other and fell into comas, that would be the absolute worst. We had to avoid inflicting friendly damage at all cost." "You have any scrolls, Blackrose?" Kite asked. I checked my inventory. Thanks to the time I'd spent leveling up, I'd gathered quite a number of them. "I've got plenty of attack magic scrolls," I said. "Could I have some?" I shot him a questioning glance. "I'll hang back to do recovery and attack from afar at the same time." "Gotcha." It was a good plan, so I gave Kite the scrolls as a gift. My attack power was higher, so it made more sense for me to fight from the front than for Kite to. For my weapon inventory, I selected the sword with the highest attack power and equipped it. Why didn't you have that equipped from the beginning, girl? Whether I lived or died now depended entirely on Kite. "It's up to you," I cried, as I ran after Matcha, focusing entirely on attack skills. I left all recovery and rear support to Kite, and then, circling Matcha, a luminescent green sphere appeared. "Kite, there it is!" I shouted. Beside the sphere appeared the text, "Protect Break OK." Kite ran to an angle with a clear shot at the phase. He lifted his right bracelet arm and set his sights on Matcha. "Mia, I'm sorry," he murmured, and an arrow of light fired from the bracelet, piercing Matcha's chest. As with the other enemies we had fought before, the data drain turned it into stone. In this case, 9 stones of various sizes strung together with tattered pieces of cloth, arranged vaguely in a shape resembling Matcha's prior form. Kite ran up to the stone, Matcha. Without so much as a glance at each other, we wordlessly whittled away at its hit points. Its 6,000 hit points decreased steadily until they vanished. Then, with a final yell, Matcha began to crumble away. Watching, I muttered, "Mia," and then I heard Kite's stupefied voice cry. "What?" I followed his gaze, his upward gaze, and saw Mia slowly floating down from above. Kite ran to her probable landing point, and I followed after him. "Mia's come back," I thought, but the Mia that Kite cradled in his arms upon her landing did not even open her eyes. "Mia, what have you done with Mia?" Elk's voice came from behind us as we peered at her face. When we turned around to look, Elk was running toward us, staring straight at his old friend. He got into the dungeon? I figured the protection must have lifted after Macha's defeat. Elk, I said, looking at him worriedly, but he ignored me and chanted a recovery spell over Mia. If only that would work, I thought, my heart breaking. Elk just kept using spells on Mia's unresponsive form. Unable to watch, I quietly backed away. Kite peered into Mia's face, and she slowly opened her eyes. Her head languidly moved to Elk's direction. "Oh, Elk," she whispered. "Thank you." And then she smiled, her body disintegrating into a cloud of light particles that ascended into the sky of the abnormal area. All Kite, Elk, and I could do was watch as they slowly disappeared upward. Leos's voice shattered our solemn moment. "The data that vanished has returned. We're resuming the operation. Go back to Omega Cruel Vindictive Scars." I stared at Kite, who caught my gaze and stood up. I can't stop now. My logical mind knew that, but my emotional self was dragging its feet. Mia was Macha, and we could not deny that we had just crushed Macha. The particles of light that Mia had burst into vanished completely. Elk had begun tottering off randomly. "Elk, Mia's..." Kite cried out to stop him, but at the moment, Elk's ears were deaf to suggestion. "Just leave me alone," Elk spat out, his back turned towards us. Then he warped out. I wanted to follow him. I had nothing to say to him that would help, but still, I wanted to be by his side. We were still in the middle of an operation, though. Checking the time. "Did you hear me?" "Oh, did you hear me?" Leo's voice shouted. "Hurry back to the previous area." The shout of it echoed in the empty spot. I couldn't take my eyes off where Elk had stood just a moment before. Aww. Lovely two-page spread of Mia in Kite's arms and Elk's looking at her, and just, bittersweet. Bittersweet this is. End of the chapter. So we're probably not going to finish the next chapter before I have to finish the stream, but that's okay. But I'm going to take a sip, the last little sip of my tea. 2 sips, excuse me. Good shit. Okay, we're probably gonna go for about 8 more minutes, and then I will get ready to try and rate somebody before the ad pops up, thankfully. Or hopefully, I should say. Each Resolution is the name of this next chapter. There we go. Where's he gone, anyway? Balmung said when Kite, he, and I warped to Omega Cruel Vindictive Scars, where the wave was supposed to have fled. I assumed Balmung was talking about Elk. Elk's withdrawal from the operation was easy to understand. He had seen only that our actions had resulted in Mia's dissolution. I wanted to follow him, to find him, to be with him in his time of need. But whether or not Leos' voice was there to shout at us, we had an operation to complete. Whether or not Leos' voice, excuse me. There was no time to get sidetracked. Balmung had stood by at the net slum while we fought Macha. Now he had come to Omega Cruel Vindictive Scars to continue the operation with us. We added him to our party in place of Elk. Spreading out before us was a field of deep red, magma-like earth, contaminated with scorch-like stains. Here, there, burpee. Arm stretchies and leg kickies. Yo, did you do your fucking burpees today? Alright. Narrow progressions of symbols crept through the air. We ran through the field, making a beeline for the dungeon. As we hadn't answered Balmung's first question, he threw out another one. I suppose it'll be there this time? The wave had escaped on our previous trip there, and the lowest level had been barren. But this time had to be different. It had to be there. Leos and Helba weren't the types to let a target get away from them twice. I never had considered that we would end up fighting both Matcha and her successor, Tarvos, in the same night. You heard Leos's voice in Leah Fail, didn't you? I said to Balmung. We had stopped in town briefly to restock, meeting Balmung there. That's the whole reason we've come, because this time it's going to be here. The seldom disarrayed Leos had sounded atypically rushed. The wave has been activated, he said. Hurry and head for it. Looks like all we can do for now is hurry, Balmung said, hefting his sword and heading into the dungeon. Kite and I nodded. We had just been there, so we remembered the layout. We would be able to take the shortest route possible to the lowest level. As we enthusiastically stepped forward, a transmission from Leos came in. Have you seen Elk? At that time, I looked at Kite. I myself wanted to know where Elk had gone, and I figured Kite felt the same way. We separated from Elk at Sigma, Graceful, Tempting, Fallen Angel, Kite said. What about him? We had no idea where Elk had gone and no way of finding out. He's left his post and taken the vaccine with him. Leos's irritated voice cried. At this rate, hurting will be... A sudden noise drowned out whatever else he had meant to say. Will be what? Leos, Kite called. We can't hear you, Leos. We called again and again, but no answer came. The noise ceased, but it was replaced by silence. Kite looked back and forth between Balmung and me. Well, let's keep going, he said eventually. Sure, I said. Just because the transmission had gotten cut off didn't mean the operation had ended. We psyched ourselves back up and descended into the dungeon. Even though we had no Wave Master, I found that the anxiety that had pressed down on me the last time was gone. Balmung was there. Kite was there. I had all the equipment I needed. Within reason, we didn't... Oh, I had all the equipment I needed within reason. God damn it, I lost my place. There it is. We didn't know what form our opponent would take this time, but the three of us had fought at one another's side before, so I knew we could do it. But it bothered me that we hadn't heard the rest of what Leos had to say. What if because Elk had gone somewhere with the vaccine, hurting had become impossible? Well, we had already come this far without a vaccine, so we should be fine. But I couldn't swear to it. The phases were becoming more complex. There was the one that had... Damn it, so close. Anyway. Phases were becoming more complex. There was the one that had talked like it was a god, the one that had come at us looking like twins, because we had decided it would be impossible to continue our struggle against increasingly difficult foes without help. We had teamed up with Leos, Helva, and the others, but if our support team were no longer there, we arrived in front of the room where there had been nothing waiting previously. This time, mist hung in the doorway, just as we expected. This is it, Balmung said, casting strengthening magic on party members, using his scrolls and items. Sparkling visual effects rained down on us, one after the other. Looking up at the sparkles as they fell, I murmured to myself, what are we supposed to do? If you think about what you want to become, what you should do will become obvious to you. My father had said once. I understood that I had to focus on the task at hand, but I couldn't help but be bothered by where Elk had gone, and what Leos had been able to communicate. Kite peered at my face. If it's not there, we can just go back to town. Yeah, we can just go back to town, he told me. He's right, Balmung agreed. There's no point in getting worked up over it. Yet it was clear to me that I wasn't the only one who was worried. Kite and Balmung also were clearly uneasy, so I affirmed my resolve and said confidently, right, let's get this over with, and hurry back to town. Smiling, I brandished my massive sword count 6, and plunged through the misty doorway. The moment I entered, severe noise rang through the room, mixed with Leos's voice. I'm suspending the operation, he said. Huh? Why? Suspending? Kite said, visibly drained. He lowered his twin blades and tilted his head. I ate the vaccine and made a damned antibody, Leos's voice continued. My men are wiped out. Return to Omega Server Root Town. Wiped out. I slowly digested Leos's words. Wiped out? Kite said, shocked. You don't mean... He looked at me. I could only shake my head. And that's where we will end for the evening. Okay. Oh, stretches. Okay. Well, that was nice. Itch. Oh, that's better. Okay. Boop. Close. Bitch, I closed the whole ass browser. What the hell are you doing? Please. Okay. Let's see who we would like to raid this evening. I probably don't have anybody in my chat, so Keeks' gang is out of the question. Hey, Skyward Sojourners, probably doing, whatchamacallit? Ocarina of Time randomizer, I think. Let's see. Natsuko, Yukio, Iris Bloodblaze. Fucking Yuli's playing Zenless Zone Zero. That name is so frustrating to me. It technically makes sense, but like, and I'm sure they made the triple Z thing on purpose, but God, it's so annoying. So fucking annoying. Oh, Naughty's playing Genshin Impact again. Let's do Skyward Sojourner. Why not? See if she is up for it. Raid. Nope, not exclamation point. It's /. Skyward Sojourner. Hey, raid's been created. Nice. All right. Bye-bye, VOD watchers.